Today, let's dive into the story of the Battle of Champaran. It's this one single event, really, that ended up changing the entire course of Indian history forever. And we're kicking things off with this quote because, look, this isn't just any story. According to Mahatma Gandhi himself, this is the story. He actually pointed to this exact moment as the one that started it all, his big push for India's independence. And it all went down in 1917. But you know what's so fascinating is that this whole thing doesn't start with some famous leader or a big political speech. Nope. It all begins with one single, incredibly determined peasant who just refused to accept injustice. So let me introduce you to Rajkumar Shukla. This guy was a sharecropper from a district called Champaran, and by all accounts, he was poor, even described as emaciated, and he couldn't read or write, but, and this is the key part, he was absolutely resolute. In 1916, he heads to the Indian National Congress Convention with just one thing on his mind: find a man named Gandhi and tell him about the messed up landlord system back in his home state of Bihar. And when I say this guy was determined, I mean it's kind of incredible. Gandhi was a busy man, right? He had commitments all over the country. But that didn't stop Shukla. He literally followed Gandhi everywhere he went. When Gandhi went back to his ashram, Shukla was right there with him, camping out for weeks. Finally, Gandhi, just totally impressed by this guy's persistence, says to him, "Look, I have to be in Calcutta on this specific date. Meet me there and you can take me with you." And sure enough, months later, when Gandhi gets to Calcutta, who's there waiting for him? Rajkumar Shukla. So the two of them hop on a train to Bihar, and their very first stop really paints a picture of what they were walking into. They show up at the house of this really prominent lawyer, a guy who would actually go on to become the first president of India, by the way. But the servants there, they see Gandhi in his simple clothes, standing next to this poor peasant, Shukla, and they just assume he's another peasant. They wouldn't even let him draw water from the well because they thought he might be an untouchable. All right, so Gandhi gets there and he realizes right away, to fix this thing, he first has to understand it. I mean, really understand it. So his first move? It wasn't to start a protest. It was to investigate. He starts by meeting with the local lawyers, and it leads him to this really profound insight. He sees them charging these poor sharecroppers a ton of money for court cases that they almost never win. And he figures out the real problem here isn't a legal one, it's psychological. He basically said that law courts are pointless when people are so crushed and terrified. The very first step he knew had to be freeing them from that fear. And what was at the very core of all that fear? The heart of this entire messed up system? Well, it all boiled down to one number: 15%. So here's the deal. All the good farmland in Champaran, it was owned by English landlords. And they forced their Indian tenants into this really nasty long-term contract. The rule was you had to plant 15% of your land with indigo, the stuff used for dye. And here's the kicker. You couldn't even sell it. You had to hand over the entire harvest from that chunk of land as your rent. But then, technology completely messes things up. Germany develops synthetic indigo, which makes the natural crop pretty much worthless. Now, you'd think, hey, great news for the peasants, right? Nope, not at all. The landlords, seeing their profits about to vanish, cooked up a whole new scheme. They told the farmers, sure, we'll let you out of that 15% contract. All you have to do is pay us a massive compensation fee. And if anyone resisted, they just hired thugs to persuade them. Okay, so as Gandhi starts digging into this, and he's uncovering just how awful this system is, it's no surprise he immediately gets on the bad side of the British authorities. I mean, the establishment tried to shut him down right from the get-go. First, the secretary of the British Landlords Association just blows him off, refusing to give any info to an outsider. Then Gandhi goes to the British official commissioner, and in Gandhi's own words, the guy basically just bullied him and told him to get out of town immediately. But did Gandhi leave? Of course not. He did the exact opposite. He went even deeper into the district, all the way to Motihari, which was the capital of Champaran. He sets up a headquarters there to keep his investigation going. So the authorities decide to escalate. A police messenger shows up and hands him an official notice. Get out of Champaran now. And this is where you see the quiet power of this moment. There was no big speech, no riot, nothing like that. Gandhi just took the notice, signed for it, and then wrote on it that he would disobey the order. The result? It was immediate, a summons to appear in court the very next day. So this just set the stage for a massive confrontation at the courthouse. This would become the climax of the whole affair, and really a major turning point for all of India.
And news just spread like wildfire. By the next morning, the town of Motihari was, and I'm quoting here, black with peasants. We're talking thousands of them. They didn't really know who Gandhi was. They didn't know about his work in South Africa. All they knew was that a Mahatma, a great soul who wanted to help them, was in trouble. And this huge, spontaneous gathering, that was an act of defiance all on its own. It was the start of them breaking free from that fear.
Meanwhile, inside the courtroom, Gandhi makes this argument that just completely baffled the government. He actually pleaded guilty to disobeying the order, but then he explained that he was caught in a conflict of duties. On one hand, yeah, he had a duty not to be a lawbreaker, but on the other hand, he had a higher duty to provide humanitarian and national service. He told them he wasn't disrespecting their law, but he was obeying a higher one, the voice of his own conscience. The British officials were totally stuck. They couldn't control the massive crowd outside without Gandhi's help, and they had absolutely no answer for his moral logic on the inside. So the magistrate postponed the trial, talked to his bosses, and just a few days later, the order came down from the lieutenant governor: drop the case. And just like that, civil disobedience had scored its very first major victory in modern India. But look, winning in court was just the beginning. The real challenge was taking this moral win and turning it into real, lasting change for the people of Champaran. So with the court case gone, the momentum totally shifted. An official commission was set up to investigate the whole situation. And get this, Gandhi was named the one and only representative for the peasants. He and his team worked tirelessly, gathering statements from 10,000 farmers. They built what was called a crushing mountain of evidence. Faced with all that, the landlords finally had to agree, at least in principle, to pay back some of the money. Okay, but how much were they going to pay back? Everyone thought Gandhi would demand a full 100% refund, but instead, he only asked for 50%. So the planters guy, probably thinking it was just a starting point for negotiation, comes back with an offer of 25%. And then comes the shocker. To everyone's surprise, Gandhi immediately accepts the 25%. Just like that, the deadlock was broken. But why? Why would he do that? Well, because for him, it was never really about the money. Gandhi explained that the symbolic victory was way more important. For the very first time, these landlords, who had acted like they were gods, totally above the law, they were forced to give up not just some of their money, but more importantly, some of their prestige. The illusion that they were untouchable was shattered. And that was the real victory, the one that lasted. The peasants saw that they had rights and they had defenders. They learned what it meant to have courage. And you know what? Events proved Gandhi was right. Within just a few years, the British planters packed up and left their estates. The whole corrupt system of indigo sharecropping, it just vanished. Which really leaves us with one final thought. This whole Champaran episode, it was about contracts and land and money. But was the fight really about economics? Or was it something deeper? Was this a battle over money? Or was it a battle for the mind?